The air recyclers wheezed through Meridian Nine's abandoned corridors, a constant mechanical breath that echoed against cold metal walls. Dim emergency lights flickered in irregular patterns, casting shifting shadows that seemed to watch, to wait. The station hung in the void, forgotten by most but not by those who understood its secrets. Varia moved silently through the corridor, her blue, Dravi skin appearing almost black in the low light. Her armor, sleek, advanced technology that hugged her form like a second skin, absorbed what little illumination reached it. Only the faint pulse of biometric readings on her wrist gauntlet betrayed any sign of life. Her mission was clear: locate and neutralize the Whisper Engine, an ancient Dravi technology capable of manipulating memories. Too dangerous to be left intact, too valuable to be destroyed without examination. Intelligence had indicated that the engine was buried deep within Meridian Nine's core, likely guarded by remnants of the Terran security forces, who had claimed the station before abandoning it to the void. Varia knew that stealth would only carry her so far. Eventually, blood would be spilled. It always was. The corridor ahead widened into a security checkpoint. Through the reinforced viewport, Varia counted 5 Terran guards. They wore standard-issue pulse rifles slung across their chests, their postures relaxed, unaware of the death that watched them from the shadows. Varia's hand moved to the hilt of her phase blade, the weapon responding to her touch with a subtle warmth against her palm. She took a slow, deliberate breath. Then she moved. The first guard barely had time to turn his head before Varia's blade sliced through his throat, a precise arc that severed both carotid arteries. As he fell, she was already pivoting, her leg sweeping the second guard off his feet. Her blade found his heart before he hit the floor. The third guard managed to raise his rifle, but Varia was already inside his guard, her blade entering beneath his ribs and angling upward into his lung. The fourth screamed in alarm. The sound cut short as Varia's thrown dagger embedded itself in his larynx. The fifth guard, more alert than his companions, fired a wild burst from his pulse rifle. The energy bolt scorched the wall behind where Varia had been a fraction of a second earlier. She flipped over his head, twisting in midair to land behind him. Her blade entered at the base of his skull, severing his spine. 5 bodies, 10 seconds. Not her fastest work, but efficient. As the last body crumpled to the floor, a voice spoke from the shadows beyond the checkpoint. "Varia!" She froze, her blade still dripping with Terran blood. That voice. It couldn't be. It was impossible. A tall figure stepped into the dim light, broad-shouldered, with a shaggy beard and dust-covered coat. No visible weapons. But that meant nothing. Varia knew exactly how dangerous those hands could be. Hands she had once thought burned to ash when the transport carrying him exploded above Kelisar 4. "Kalen," she said, her Dravi accent making the name sound like breaking glass. The human warrior stepped over the bodies without looking down. His eyes, one blue, one replaced with a cybernetic implant that glowed faintly amber, fixed on her face. "You haven't lost your touch," he said, nodding toward the dead guards. "Still as efficient as ever." Varia did not lower her blade. "You're supposed to be dead." "Sorry to disappoint." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You missed. Not by much, but enough." "I didn't miss." The words came automatically, pride asserting itself even now. "I never miss." "No?" Kalen reached up and tapped a finger against a long scar that ran along his jawline. "Then, what would you call this?" "A warning." Kalen laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the metal corridor. "Always that Dravi precision with words. I've missed that." Varia took a step back, her blade still held defensively between them. "Why are you here?" "Same reason as you. I expect..." Kalen gestured deeper into the station. "The Whisper Engine. Although I suspect our objectives might differ. My mission is to neutralize it." "Neutralize." Kalen rolled the word around his mouth as if tasting it. Interesting choice of words. Not destroy. Not salvage. Neutralize. Varia's eyes narrowed. There's a trap ahead, isn't there? That's why you're warning me instead of attacking. Several traps, actually. I've disabled the ones I could see. But there's always something hidden. He nodded toward the corridor ahead. The station's AI is running on old Dravi code with outdated Alliance APIs. It's erratic, responding to stimuli in ways the engineers never intended. I've been watching migrator rats flee from sections of the station that should be perfectly safe, and maintenance bots getting stuck in recursive loops. The whisper engine is leaking, Varia said, understanding immediately. Its anchor signal is bleeding into the station's systems. Exactly. Kalen's cybernetic eye flickered, adjusting to the low light. How did you know I was alive? I didn't. Varia finally lowered her blade, though she didn't sheath it. I never expected to see you again. Yet here I am. Kalen spread his arms wide. The ghost who wouldn't die. What do you want, Kalen? Right now? To get to the engine without dying. After that? He shrugged. I haven't decided yet. Varia studied him, looking for signs of deception. The Kalen she had known, had tried to kill, had been direct, sometimes brutally so. This man seemed the same, but there was something else there now. A wariness, perhaps, or resignation. I have orders to complete this mission alone, she said finally. And I have no orders at all. Kalen smiled, and this time, it did reach his eyes. Which makes me the only person on this station not being manipulated by that AI. Not a bad ally to have, don't you think? Varia didn't answer immediately. The mission parameters had been clear. Retrieve or neutralize the whisper engine. Avoid detection. Eliminate witnesses. But Kalen wasn't just any witness. He was complicated. Fine, she said at last. But the first sign of betrayal. And I finish what I started on Kelisar 4. Wouldn't expect anything less. Kalen turned and began walking deeper into the station. Try to keep up. The corridors grew darker as they descended toward the station's core. The emergency lighting became more sporadic, creating pools of dim illumination separated by stretches of near-total darkness. Dust particles floated in the air, caught in the light beams like frozen stars. The architecture changed subtly, the sleek, utilitarian Terran design giving way to something older, more ornate, Dravi engineering. The engine is housed in one of the original sections, Kalen explained as they walked. When the Terrans retrofitted Meridian 9, they built around the Dravi core rather than dismantling it. Too much risk of triggering dormant security protocols. Smart, Varia conceded. Dravi engineers were known to leave surprises for those who disturbed their work. Speaking from experience? I've studied the old texts. Varia ran her fingers along a wall engraving, feeling the intricate patterns beneath her touch. The whisper engine was decommissioned after the first culling. It was deemed too dangerous, even by Dravi standards. Yet here you are, sent to retrieve it. I volunteered. She saw Kalen's surprised look and added, I've been collecting old Dravi memory cores, the banned ones, from before the purge. I'm looking for something. The truth? Varia's step faltered for just a moment. How did you? Because it's what I would do. Kalen's voice softened. We're not so different, you and I, both chasing ghosts through abandoned stations. They reached a sealed doorway, its surface covered in ancient Dravi script. Varia placed her hand against it, feeling the subtle vibration of dormant systems responding to her touch. It recognizes your genetic signature, Kalen observed. All Dravi technology does. Varia pressed harder, and the door began to slide open with a grinding protest of long disused mechanisms. It's keyed to our DNA. Beyond the door lay a control center, its curved walls lined with flickering screens displaying static and fragmented code. Dust-covered memory cores sat in recessed alcoves, their indicator lights blinking sporadically. A central console dominated the room. its surface marked with faded Dravi symbols, painted in what looked uncomfortably like dried blood. At the center of it, all floated a ceremonial chair, suspended by force fields that hummed with energy. The memory seat, the trigger that would activate the whisper engine when occupied. "Don't touch anything," Varela warned, stepping carefully into the room. "Especially not that chair." "I wasn't planning to," Kalen replied, eyeing the floating seat with obvious distrust. "What exactly does the engine do? The reports I've read were vague." "It was designed as a memory enhancement tool," Varela explained, moving toward the central console. "A way for Dravi to access their ancestral memories, to connect with their lineage. But it was perverted during the wars, turned into a weapon that could extract memories or implant false ones." "Mind control?" "No. Something worse." Varela's fingers traced the symbols on the console. "It doesn't control. It reveals. It shows you the memories you've buried, the truths you've hidden from yourself. It forces you to confront who you really are." Kalen frowned. "That doesn't sound like a weapon." "It is when those memories break you." Varela's voice had grown quiet. "When they shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself." Something in her tone made Kalen look at her more closely. "You've used it before." "Not directly." Varela shook her head. "But I've seen what it does to people. The aftermath." She continued working at the console, activating long dormant systems. The screens around the room flickered more actively, displaying fragmented Dravi text and diagrams. The air grew charged with energy, raising the fine hairs on Kalen's arms. "There," Varela said finally. "I've isolated the core protocols. Now I just need to—" She stopped suddenly, her body going rigid. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating. "Varela?" Kalen stepped toward her, concerned. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned slowly toward the floating memory seat, her movements no longer her own. As if in a trance, she began walking toward it. "Varela, stop!" Kalen lunged forward, grabbing her arm. "Whatever you're seeing, it's not real. The engine is affecting you." "I have to know," she whispered, her voice sounding distant, even to her own ears. "I have to remember." Before Kalen could stop her, she pulled free of his grip and sat in the memory seat. Immediately, the force fields brightened, energy crackling around her body. The console screens flared with light, displaying rapid sequences of Dravi symbols. Varela's back arched, her eyes wide open but seeing nothing in the room. "System engaged," announced a synthetic voice, speaking in ancient Dravi. "Memory interface active. Whisper protocols initiated." Kalen swore, looking frantically around the room for some way to shut down the process. But the controls were locked, responding only to Varela's neural patterns, now that she was connected to the system. Inside Varela's mind, chaos erupted. Memories cascaded through her consciousness, not in sequence, not with any coherence, but all at once. She saw Kalen as she had first met him, a prisoner of war in a Dravi holding cell. She saw herself striking him during an interrogation, his blood on her knuckles. She heard his screams as their ship burned around them on Kelisar 4. And beneath it all, she felt the crushing weight of her own betrayal, of the pain she had buried beneath layers of duty and Dravi stoicism. The station around them began to change. Corridors stretched and contracted. Ceiling panels shifted to emit ultraviolet light. Illumination strips burst into spatial quantum rays like glowing veins. Meridian 9 was restructuring itself around Varela's deepest memories. "What's happening?" Kalen demanded, watching as the walls seemed to pulse with light. "The whisper engine is activating fully," the synthetic voice replied. "Accessing deep memory structures. Initiating truth protocol." In Varela's mind, the fragmented memories began to coalesce. She saw herself on Kelisar 4 again. But this time, the memory continued beyond what she had allowed herself to remember. She saw herself pulling Kalen from the burning wreckage, dragging him to safety before the final explosion. And then, this was the part she had buried deepest. She saw herself walking away, leaving him unconscious, but alive, reporting him as dead, so she could continue her mission without the complication of what she had begun to feel for him. She had buried him alive in her memory, because it was easier than acknowledging she had saved him out of something other than duty. The memory seat released her suddenly, the force fields dissipating. Varela slumped forward, gasping for breath, her body trembling with the shock of recovered memories. Varela! Kalen caught her before she could fall, supporting her weight. Are you all right? What did you see? She couldn't answer. Not yet. The truth was too raw, too overwhelming. Instead, she pointed toward a doorway that had appeared in the far wall of the control room. A doorway that hadn't been there before. We need to go there, she managed to say, her voice hoarse. The engine's anchor. It's calling me. This is a trap, Kalen warned, but he helped her to her feet nonetheless. The station is manipulating us. Not the station, Varela corrected, finding her strength returning. The engine. It wants to be found. The newly appeared doorway led to a vast chamber, unlike anything else on Meridian 9. The ceiling soared high above them, a dome of what appeared to be frozen starlight. The walls were curved, made of a metallic substance that shifted colors like an oil slick as they moved. At the center of the chamber stood a column of red obsidian, pulsing with inner light, like a beating heart. The anchor, Varela whispered, the physical manifestation of the whisper engine. As they approached, something detached itself from the obsidian column. A hovering entity formed of transparent alloys, with circuitry visible beneath its surface. Red light flickered through its form like a circulatory system. It had no distinct features, yet somehow conveyed an impression of ancient intelligence. Sentinel, Varela said, recognizing the entity from old Dravi texts. Guardian of Truth. The Sentinel spoke directly into their minds, bypassing ears entirely. You carry Dravi memories, but they are fractured. I am here to show you what is real. Varela drew her phase blade, its edge humming with energy. But something stopped her from attacking. Memories of Kalen, of emotions she had suppressed, of truths she had denied. She hesitated, caught between her mission directive and the overwhelming urge to protect someone she had once abandoned. Who are you to judge what's real? She demanded, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. I do not judge. I reveal. The Sentinel hovered closer. You think you have forgotten, but you have only buried me. Tears formed in Varela's eyes, silent and defiant. The whisper engine's power washed over her, bringing all her buried memories to the surface, forcing her to confront the truth of what she had done, how she had betrayed friendship, perhaps even love, in the name of duty. Varela, Kalen said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Whatever you're seeing, whatever it's telling you, you don't have to face it alone. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since their reunion. The scar along his jaw that she had given him during their first encounter. The cybernetic eye that had replaced the one damaged in the explosion she had left him to face alone. The lines around his mouth that spoke of pain, endured and overcome. I left you to die, she said, the words torn from her throat. On Kelisar 4, I saved you from the initial explosion, then left you unconscious, knowing the secondary detonations would follow. I reported you as dead. Kalen's expression remained unchanged. I know. You know? I've always known. His hand remained on her shoulder, steady and warm. I woke up just as you were leaving. I saw you hesitate at the doorway, saw the conflict in your eyes. You couldn't bring yourself to kill me directly, but you couldn't disobey your orders to eliminate me either, so you found a middle path. I betrayed you. You gave me a chance, however slim. Kalen's voice held no accusation, only understanding. More than most Dravi assassins would have done. The sentinel spoke again, its voice resonating through their minds. The truth has been acknowledged. The cycle can be completed. Varia stepped forward, approaching the obsidian column. As she touched its surface, the red light within slowed its pulsing rhythm, becoming steady and calm. The station around them began to stabilize, corridors shrinking back to their original dimensions, lights returning to their normal spectrum, the oppressive feeling of manipulation fading away. Varia stepped away from the memory seat, her face etched with exhaustion but also relief. She looked at Kalen, standing across from her. "I remember you now." He merely nodded, asking no questions about what she had seen or experienced. It was enough. Together, they made their way back through Meridian 9's corridors, the station no longer fighting against their presence. It was as if the memory, the truth, had been accepted, allowing them passage. Aboard the transport vessel that would take them away from Meridian 9, Varia sat beside Captain Kalen in the cockpit, quiet with her newly recovered thoughts about emotion and responsibility. She had completed her mission, after a fashion. The Whisper engine had been neutralized, though not in the way her superiors had intended. Instead of destroying it or bringing it back for study, she had faced it, embraced the truth it revealed, and in doing so, stripped it of its power. She looked up at the cabin ceiling, whispering words she had found in one of the ancient Dravi texts. To remember is the only way not to lose oneself. Beside her, Kalen sipped his synthetic coffee and smiled, a promise of an uncertain future that, for the first time in years, Varia found herself looking forward to. Meridian 9 hung silent in the void once more, its corridors dark and empty. But deep within its core, the red obsidian column continued its slow, steady pulse, a heartbeat waiting for the next seeker of truth to find their way to its chamber. The Whisper engine remained, neither good nor evil, simply a mirror to those who dared to look upon their own buried truths. And somewhere, in the darkness between stars, the memories continued to whisper.